Welcome, everyone, and good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. A big thank you for your participation today in this hot topic webinar by Horizon. As you know, that today we're going to be talking about ARCHIBUS version 22.1, which was just released in Boston this month, and we've already offered a few sessions in user groups and shared some information on the August and September newsletters. But for the next hour, we really want to show and tell you really about what the latest enhancements to the ARCHIBUS suite is. Horizon is committed to Horizon's committed to helping our clients excel by offering the latest and the best software, the service support, and advice. Part of our mission is really to share the evolution of today's IWMS solutions and demonstrate the ability that the technology has to be able to address changing business needs while promoting the value of facility and essential organizational data within the context of the larger enterprise. In short, helping to make our clients' lives easier and theirs and their team's jobs easier, more efficient, and more valuable. Horizon often plays an instrumental role in advising when ARCHIBUS upgrades or point releases make the most sense for our client's particular install, or to help our clients explore new modules or features. So today, for example, you're going to hear about some advances in the performance of building ops and project management consoles. You'll also see space inventory integrated with move management and performance data. You'll also see room reservations with Outlook plugins and Microsoft Exchange, and some expanded output options to PDF and PowerPoint. Finally, you'll hear about more simplified system admin console and connector tools for integration, and a lot more. You will likely notice that there's been a broad trend to a more holistic enterprise asset management offering with a spotlight on ARCHIBUS's ability to integrate not only among modules like never before, but also with other data systems. Capital budgeting and real estate modules continue to offer portfolio efficiencies and import data sets to share and gain insight from department to department. To me, it really seems that the industry shift to big data and the types of KPI or key performance indicators or trend reporting that is offered in the performance metrics through ARCHIBUS continues to drive the interest in integration and the need for output from the various business domains inside and also outside of ARCHIBUS. I also believe that the expanding interest of the C-suite into organizational data has driven considerable development by ARCHIBUS in the last few releases, and also to prepare that data for consumption and directed development in two important ways. Number one, through navigation, reporting, and access. Expanded home pages and consoles allow users to drill down and digest the data they want to see or need at the level that best suits the requirements as quickly as possible, so high or highly detailed level, depending on what they need, and offering more options for the visualization of that data into things like PowerPoint, Crystal reports, and flexible PDFs. Access to data has also been expanded to more stakeholders through integration and through mobilization. Number two, the total asset lifecycle management with a highly integrated and mobile ARCHIBUS, the tracking and management of information on the portfolio from construction through operations and finally to divestment is key. In other words, a wider lens on the big picture for the organization, its people and process, its assets, and overall spend. The metrics and control which ARCHIBUS measures, tracks, and reports on will provide and show current state, performance over time, and also help managers plan for the future. The real value to the organization is in real time and cost savings, in SLA and workflows, which make life easier and more streamlined on the ground, in a centralized document management repository to help and also in the ability to help managers offer better service to their clients and stakeholders, as well as providing the metrics that offer the kind of oversight needed for agile business today. Long-lasting gain comes from a short-term pain of keeping pace with the great work that the ARCHIBUS development team does as they continue to fold in the user feedback into the suite. Exploring what may be newer areas to you is important. Domains like that keep track and control of energy or waste management, things like emergency preparedness or risk management, better visualization through GIS data integration with Esri or Google. or the connecting of capital budgeting to the key elements in your financial software, even using your space data to populate and expand more workplace services for room bookings, or etc., or highly efficient self-service desk. All these developments have been wholly driven from over 35 years of listening to the over 7 million user community of ARCHIBUS, and in the careful evaluation of where business is going, what the requirements are now, and for the foreseeable future. But back to today's event. Due to limited time, we usually save questions till the end and try to keep folks muted, but feel free to type your questions into the dialog box at the lower right of your meeting console, and we'll definitely do our best to get to them at the end. The session is also being recorded, so and will be available on the website at www.horizon.ca, or upon request if you want to just send me a note. I do see a lot of familiar faces on today, so just send me a note and we can send you the link. Without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Wayne Lico, who most of you know, Managing Partner here at Horizon.
Thanks, Ayanna. Thank you for the introduction.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone, and fasten your seatbelts. We're in for a quick ride here on version 22. The agenda for today is I'm going to cover off some stuff. I'm going to hand over. Greg Galeveris from ARCHIBUS is hiding behind the scenes right now. He'll jump in a moment, and then hand back to me, and we'll try and get to some Q&A in short order. Overall, ARCHIBUS 22.1 is one of the largest releases that they've had in terms of enhancements and changes. So we're going to really try and cover as much ground as we can today, and as a result, some of the enhancements we go through are going to be kind of skimming the surface, and there's also a lot that we may not have time to get into today, but trying to give you a flavor of what's going on. One of the key things that Ayanna was talking about has to do with this integration. ARCHIBUS has always been an integrated application, and what you're seeing now is an extension to that, where they're building on the already tightly integrated components and adding elements like the enterprise asset management and extending some of the space, occupancy, and inventory information into the forecasting and the planning side. So what we want to try and convey here today is key functionality, but at the same time keeping in mind how those key functional areas tie in together. And we fully expect that some of these topics are going to require us to kind of split them out and cover them off in more detail. So I'm going to start off with some of the asset management domain. Greg will come in and talk a bit about the portfolio and the space planning. And then I'll wrap it up with a long list of the product enhancements, which really are going to cover all the functional areas inside of ARCHIBUS. So without further ado, on this particular screen, the point of this is to lay the foundation of what the product offering is within ARCHIBUS in 22.1. And I'm actually going to start from the bottom and work my way up, because for some of you, you'd be familiar with the asset portal that exists inside of ARCHIBUS currently, where it does a good job of managing the asset inventory. They've added a couple of functional areas, activities, within the asset management domain. The first one, moving from the bottom up, is the asset management. So this is really the idea of your life cycle, and the idea of taking in an asset and then managing it, and then ultimately disposing or redeploying it. So it covers a number of different areas that includes how you get the data into the system, how you then manage it from your FM or IT or maintenance perspective, as in location or condition, or reassignment of the asset. Stepping up from there gets us into the enterprise asset management, and some of the key things that you're going to see in the enterprise asset management really ties into this idea of forecasting and planning. So not just managing the asset from its receipt into the organization and its ultimate disposal, but it's also being able to plan. It's also being able to tie into your enterprise resource planning, your ERP systems that you have, the asset registries. In most cases, when we're having discussions with clients around asset management, it does revolve around the source data. Where do you initially capture that? And that's where that ERP integration becomes so important, as organizations typically buy things through their enterprise systems. So when you look at the asset management domain, one of the key things here is to understand that depending on where you're coming at your asset management, you do have options. If you're really just looking to track your assets, the asset portal is a great way to do it. If you're then looking to expand that into acquiring them and through the whole life cycle, the asset management does a great job. And then if you're needing to do integration and planning, tying into projects and capital requirements, the enterprise asset management is the tool for you, and it touches on a variety of things. So really, when you look at asset management, it starts extending, and when you look at it from an enterprise perspective, it extends beyond your equipment and ties it into your properties, your buildings, structures, land, furniture. So everything that you might consider to be an asset. Again, in discussions with clients, a lot of the times the misnomer is an asset is a piece of furniture. Well, really, when you think about it, an asset is anything that your organization has and manages, whether that be furniture or buildings or people or anything along those lines. So the asset management, as you can see from this homepage, covers things from registration, the life cycle, and the disposal, and gives you the metrics and the location of your assets in a one-stop shop. So you can start seeing some of the enhancements that the product offering is giving us here with respect to replacement values and how that's tying into all of your asset information. And of course, the key is that the asset management is giving you the ability to optimize your assets. And the examples that we're looking at here is perhaps you can see from an improved mapping perspective how it ties into the asset status. And you start seeing where your assets are and whether they're proposed, disposed, inactive, or active, and highlighted on the map, and then tying that into your financial and your benchmarks related to your financials on your assets, all the way through to the idea of being able to walk the floor and understand where your assets are, where they've been relocated, the condition of the assets, and reporting that back into the enterprise tool. So depending on the user that you have, the enterprise asset management is going to give you that high-level planning all the way through to the actual in-the-field management and acquiring of the assets. As we talked about, the enterprise asset management introduces this idea of projects and proposed assets. And for anybody that's familiar with ARCHIBUS from a project management perspective, this is now layering these elements into the asset side and being able to understand what you might need and how you might plan on either acquiring assets or disposing of assets and building those out as projects. So you start seeing here this idea of proposed and requested, following through on, again, the workflow that you would have with the current project management. But now adding into that the idea of things like criticality. So in the asset management side, understanding how important an asset is to the organization putting it into the idea of where you're going to need them, the costs associated to them, and the details, simply all the way down to comments such as, you know, relocating a lab, keeping a campus open, retention of staff, all kinds of different qualifiers that you can now layer into your planning of your asset management. So as I mentioned, the idea of asset management gets us into the full life cycle. And what ARCHIBUS has introduced with 22.1 are a number of consoles and panels to facilitate this. And again, today we're not going to have time to necessarily dive into all of them. Kind of what we're seeing here on the on screen are a couple of different consoles. There's a life cycle and then there's a disposal console. But again, it manages it in a one-stop shop perspective depending on your role through the life cycle of the asset. So being able to capture the asset as it comes in, and we'll look at a couple of different ways that ARCHIBUS does that, and then manage that and optimize and dispose. So as an example, the mobility side, a key part to asset management for a lot of clients, looking at the mobile framework that ARCHIBUS offers, being able to add an asset. So this could be something at a loading dock where something is coming into the organization, or this can be used for somebody walking the floor and doing a survey and finding assets that might not be captured in the traditional way that you'd hope it would with some ERP integration. So giving you, again, options on your different use cases of how you do that. And here's a great example from a survey standpoint, being able to confirm that an asset is in the spot that it should be, or making notes. You can see on the right side of the screen the ability to redline, so coming into a location and understanding that either an asset's been moved or redeployed, perhaps making comments so that the drawing information can be updated as to where the asset is located. So it's a very powerful tool in the sense that it gets very granular and detailed in what you want to do. The other key thing that they've introduced here is the telecom for some of our longtime clients that have evolved from the Windows client world. The telecom is been introduced into the Web Central side, allowing you to not just track equipment information, but also all of that connection information. If you look here on the left side of the screen, you can start seeing the equipment, and you start seeing the faceplates and jacks and panels, equipment and ports and software. So now allowing you within the Web Central environment to do an end-to-end with respect to your telecom assets and the details related to that. ARCHIBUS has always had a strong capability to do data connectors to any system. And what you're seeing here now are some predefined elements. The examples that we're looking at on screen here are Maximo and Oracle and SAP. So these are ERP connectors that are there and ready to be used and connect to that whole conversation around source data and how your assets are being brought into the organization and how you want that information to be shared with a system like ARCHIBUS to be managed on a day-to-day basis. So it really is giving you that, again, enterprise perspective, end-to-end elements of your asset management and tying into any number of connectors. So it's really a very broad set of tools, and the idea is if I just simply scroll back into our introductory here, you can kind of see now how these are layered and structured in a way that allows you to build. So for clients that may have been managing their assets, and perhaps you've been managing your assets purely from a maintenance perspective, this now is allowing you to kind of move up that broader scale of your asset management and go into the pure asset management, the life cycle, or all the way into the enterprise and managing things from a planning proposal perspective all the way through to the disposal. So that's a quick primer on the tool from an enterprise asset management. We'll be setting up specific webinars around enterprise asset management because really it needs 1 to 2 hours to cover off all of those different domains and get us into the full functionality. But I'm going to hand off to Greg real quick here and get Greg to give us a similarly quick tour of some of the planning and portfolio. And then I'll come back with some elements on the product enhancements here in a few minutes.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate that, and I'm glad everybody's had a chance to join us to preview what's going on, and I'm glad you've taken the time to share the workload on these presentations. I've been doing a lot of speed speaking over the past few days, so it's a pleasure to see others jump in and do this. But let me go ahead, and I'm going to focus on the advanced portfolio forecasting, strategic space planning. And in essence, there's two key pieces that proliferate both sets of applications, and that is the space requirements to help you develop your forecast, and it is the strategic space planning console to do all the planning exercises to determine what happens over time, whether it be a short window of less than a year or a multi-year plan, going out 3, 5, 10 years. Let me begin with the strategic space requirements document, which is a way of building out the forecast. Its foundations, of course, go to the strategic master planning module from Windows, and it has some new abilities to gather information. But you would recognize some of the key things in terms of defining a forecast, and you can forecast anything you want. You can forecast a building, a campus site, a given province that you're working in, the entire country, or your global portfolio. Of course, you want to describe what that is that you're trying to accomplish with your forecast planning, and you can have them overlap. It doesn't really matter. You're not affecting any of the standard data that comes with ARCHIBUS. You naturally want to capture the data from your ARCHIBUS portfolio, and that's one of the things that I think a lot of people were looking for, was being able to naturally work with all of that space information and rich data that was already contained within your ARCHIBUS system. So it's a simple matter of saying how far you want to go. Is it very high level at the business unit, or is it very detailed at the functional group, or is it somewhere in between? So for this exercise, the person chose to plan at the division level. And naturally, where do you take that information to? Is it simply looking at it at a building by building level, or do you want to break it down for each of the buildings and floors that you have in the portfolio? And so we took this route to talk about the exercise. And then where does the space come from, in the sense that what we're trying to do is saying, okay, we've got all of these P lines, and they have room areas, so we want to pull that in. Or did we define the space as standards, and do we want to count how many workstations, offices, conference rooms, executive offices, labs that we have? Or do we simply want to pick up head count? So for any given area where we have, hundreds, dozens, thousands of employees, we want to capture that requirement, assign a area per person, and then multiply through to say this is what we're looking for. And then finally, what we're looking for, of course, is where's that data coming from? Are we doing this for a given building, a set of buildings in a given area, a campus environment that we might have, or again, any of the provinces, regions, or full country or portfolio that we're looking for? So again, we can pull that right from ARCHIBUS. Ultimately, what this gets us to is establishing a baseline of information that tells us where we are now before we begin any planning exercise. And I always found this one of the beauties of ARCHIBUS, going back to my early days of joining the company, is that for me to plan where I'm going, I kind of have to know where I'm coming from. And if anything, all of you have been good at capturing that detail. And then from there, you just project out forward. And the periods can be in months, quarters, years. And for my exercise, I did it by year. And so each year we just say, what is our requirement as we roll up our area data and what's needed in the future. And so all of that can now be input into the forecast requirements. You could send out spreadsheets, have people fill them in, and then re-import them into ARCHIBUS if needed. The beauty of it, though, comes when you start aligning it with the strategic space planning console and being able to set up the event dates that occur. So every year as you add space to the portfolio, every time you relocate one group from one place to another in the portfolio, or let's say you're bringing in a new business line and you want to add that space and it doesn't exist right now, you can just go ahead and create that as needed. All of those events get captured in your system. And so what we're going to do is spend a couple seconds kind of walking through the software just to see a little bit of what the capabilities are. I mean, I kind of agree with Wayne. We could spend all day just going through this stuff and diving deep into everything, but I'm going to give you a quick whirlwind tour of the capabilities. So what we've done is we've started by creating a scenario. The scenario is there to help us determine what we want to do, and we can create as many versions of that scenario that we want, so we're not restricted to doing one and only one scenario. But let's go ahead and proceed forward. So what we're going to do is we've identified some things that we want to do in the Boston area, for instance. And in our planning exercise, we want to identify the properties that we have, looking at the existing portfolio, what's the current use of those properties, what's that baseline allocation. It could be leased properties owned in buildings, and then what is our plan for the future, in which our planning exercise is going to take us to adding a new building in the near future. So we're going to actually increase our portfolio in Boston and ultimately, vacate some lease space. And so what's nice is we can plan all of that with the portfolio, and you can see the changes that occur over time as we add new space, expand what's going on in the building. It's a simple matter of either creating that data or dragging and dropping it from the existing portfolio. All along, what you're trying to do is make sure that you have the sufficient capacity to manage the needs of the organization. So as we look through time and we achieve that date in June in terms of what's going on, we see the change in the portfolio because we've, oops, pushed the wrong button there. Let me page up again. Sorry, hitting the wrong buttons. Let me just get restarted here. So as I was doing the gap analysis, what I was trying to do was pause here for a quick second. And what I wanted to do was basically say, we see a big jump, and this is representative of when this new building that we're talking about, that we've either constructed or purchased, is coming online. So we've had a dramatic change in the portfolio. At the same time, we are also changing how we're growing our space. We're forecasting new requirements, we're adding new capabilities, and so we're increasing the amount of space that is allocated, and the thing that we want to do is make sure that we never exceed the amount of capacity that we have available to us. So as we progress through time, we see all of these different events occur, from forecasting new requirements to relocating space to getting to a point where we're actually vacating leased area. All of that can be tracked in your planning exercise so you can see the full impact on your portfolio. Returning back to the stack plan, we can start tracking what happens over time, and we can start planning details around any of those areas. So for instance, what I want to do is actually plan how I'm going to allocate this space and block it onto the floor plan. So I actually create a markup, and what I use is our web drawings to work with. We use the red line tools to help do the blocking exercise. And so what we'll go ahead, and I'll speed this up a little bit just to help, but the goal is to pull area onto the floor plan, designate it for the different organizations, and each organization then takes up their requisite amount of space, And we continue doing the exercise by identifying different areas for different groups. And so we can see how we want to fill out the space that we have. So again, we drag and drop the appropriate space, label it out, and fill it in. And I'll do one more here just to fulfill my fun of having stacking and blocking. And the idea is to make sure that all the space that we planned fits neatly on the floor plan. And we start at a very high level with a blocking exercise. And we can certainly dig deeper and actually select and assign given rooms on the floor plan to our red line exercise. But I'm just doing a high level one for the time being. And so as we progress through time and return back to our event log, what we'll do is step forward into the future here just a little bit more. So we'll advance into 2019. And what we see is a big difference. And if you look to the top, all the space that was in that BossMed building, the lease has expired. We have now pushed it into the portfolio of the building that we constructed or the other building that we had in the portfolio. And in addition to that, we have other forecast requirements displayed below that we have to fulfill within the system. So this gives you a quick view of what we can do. There's a lot more that's there, and Wayne's group will certainly spend more time with you. But the nice thing is that you can plan portfolio changes by either showing the addition of buildings or the demolition of buildings, by incorporating leases that are starting or expiring, and this actually connects to the lease administration so that you can actually use those dates to showcase that change in the portfolio. And we can also, of course, just track when buildings are purchased or sold in our planning and capacity analysis. As I said, we can plan a multitude of scenarios so that we can forecast growth, we can plan for new business lines, or we can plan for new consolidations and mergers and acquisitions. And finally, we can get into redlining by doing blocking plans and space allocations using the tools available to us. So that's a quick overview. So Wayne, do I pass it back to you, or do you grab control from here?
I believe I will grab control.
All right, well, I'm turning it back over to you.
Thanks, Greg.
So my seatbelt is still on, and I'm ready for the rest of this ride.
It's good. And keep your hands and arms in at all times.
Oh, damn, I forgot something.
Okay, give me a second to make myself presenter.
I think I'll stop showing screen just in case you needed to release.
That works wonderfully. Thank you.
There you go. And I figured it had to be something simple like that.
Yeah.
So I took my hands away and let them loose, but I survived so far.
That's good. All right, here we go. So thanks, Greg. That's a great, again, intro to some of those new features in the planning. And I think that again, calling on all of the users that are as old as I am, you can see some of that strategic master planning from previous generation of ARCHIBUS that's been introduced now and layered into the Web Central. So now product enhancements. This is where we're going to touch on a variety of different things. There's not necessarily any rhyme or reason or order to the sequence. I'm really just going to go into all of these things and show you what, when we talk about enhancements, these are changes, improvements, little add-ons to existing functionality. And you'll also see how it bridges that integration that I was talking about during the introduction. So this is a good example. The Space Console has had some functionality with respect to this, kind of waiting room before. And now what they've introduced, you can see in the bottom part of the screen, the idea of creating a move order or adding to an existing move order. So this is now the idea of within that space console, which is a powerful one-stop shop for space, I can actually initiate or add to existing moves. So just further integration of the application beyond where it is right now. Printing, I suspect that this is of interest to pretty much all of the clients, and ARCHIBUS continues to improve the output, the idea of being able to take something to a meeting and give you this ad hoc PDF reports. And you can see on screen, without me reading the words, the options that are being now presented to you. A key one down here is this print just the current drawing. The idea is that we're looking at something very specific and we want to take that to a meeting or print it out, versus going and getting all of the drawings that might be available to me. So being able to control that is a great one, even all the way to your label text. If you know you're outputting to a larger format, then you might be able to increase the height of the text and just make it more legible, depending on the purposes. So just some again enhancements to the printing capabilities. For the folks that are using the building ops console that was introduced a couple of versions ago, depending on how much data you're managing, the loading of that data can sometimes take a little while. And what they've done is given different options on how you can load the building ops console. So what you're seeing on screen as an example is really just the loading of the bands, the different categories, statuses of your work orders. And instead of loading all of the data, it's just loading those headers. And then when you expand upon the headers, that's when it's going to load the rest of the data. So it just improves the usability of the building ops console, and allows, for the most part, when people are loading the building ops console, they're really going in to look at specific information or specific statuses, and this way you can get the information loaded that much faster. Within the energy management, being able to compare year-to-year changes in energy bills. All right, what appears to be a simple report, but a powerful one of seeing what kind of trends you have and some comparisons. So a small but significant improvement within the energy management. Here you now start seeing again that layering of the data across different functional areas within the environmental and risk information, being able to track hazardous materials, and then how you tie that into your emergency preparedness to be able to report to first responders on where the information, where the location is of some of these hazardous materials. So now you have that ability to bring that in if you're tracking things within the environmental and risk, where it will push right into your emergency preparedness. Mobile apps, you're always going to see improvements or additional mobile apps being introduced. So here's an example of additional mobile app where you can manage your hazardous materials, walking around, being able to visually see the floor plan and then drill down to the specific hazardous material that's located in that particular location. Smart Client extensions, they have a number of enhancements. I just happen to pick one here that I think is a pretty powerful one. ARCHIBUS has been integrated with the Revit for some time now and allows you to push and pull information. What you're seeing here is some enhancements on the left side of your screen is how you would get information from your model into ARCHIBUS in what I would consider a more bulk way. And then on the right side of the screen is how you can actually update the information within your model from ARCHIBUS. And I've worked with clients on both use cases where initially you're loading the data that's found in the model into ARCHIBUS, And then as you manage and change and perhaps replace, dispose of some of the assets, clients have talked about wanting to make sure that the model has that up-to-date information reflected back. So these are some enhancements on those tools to exchange the data. Within your portfolio and lease sides, threaded throughout that now, the ability to manage parcels and taxes and being able to manage the details all the way through. And you'll see this not just in one of the activities, you actually would see this threaded throughout that whole domain and being able to use the parcels and taxes. System admin, being able to set up your information, present that in a much more user-friendly way. So you can see here, both from a project standpoint as well as from a database and application standpoint, being able to go right into this console. ARCHIBUS has spent a lot of time over the last couple of generations of the product doing exactly this, which is developing consoles and interfaces that gets you to, whether it's functions like we see in this case, or the data that you've been collecting over the years and being able to use and manage that data much more effectively. So it's a powerful way to manage and use the tool now with these consoles and the different things that they offer. We talked about the output to PDF. Even more powerful is the ability to output directly to PowerPoint. There's probably many times, and we still see you know, the output, the drawing output specifically, but many cases of people taking floor plans and coloring them in to make a presentation. Here what we're talking about is taking that very powerful data that you're getting now out of ARCHIBUS, whether it's metrics or floor plans or anything, and pushing those directly out to PowerPoint, and either being able to use those in a presentation or send those off for somebody to consume the information without having to access ARCHIBUS directly. So that's a nice feature. Building automation system data connectors, again on the energy management side, being able to tie into some of these data points. So you saw earlier when I was in the asset management, some of those ERP connectors that have been developed and built in. Now you're starting to see some of that from an energy management. Nobody, if at all possible, we want to avoid having to key in billing information. So here what we're doing is, in this particular case, tying into the electricity consumption, but this can also tie into certain metrics of energy usage within your building automation system. So again, a powerful way of doing an enterprise integration. There's actually a long list of mapping improvements, if you will, GIS improvements. Here are some simplistic ones that are highlighted. The first one that is great for a lot of clients is the ability to either use Esri or Google from a map perspective. So you can leverage whichever content you want or that you currently use. And then on the map marker side, if we look on the right-hand side of the screen first, you start seeing how the data that ARCHIBUS possesses can be displayed now graphically, and so in a snapshot people can get a really good view of what's going on within the portfolio, whether that's across the world or within a campus or a province, and see the colors, how they match into the highlights, and even all the way down to the building use, the idea of seeing how the color codes match now the map markers. So instead of just simply having a simple marker that tells us that we have a building there, we actually are now able to serve up data at a glance that is relevant to the information we have in the database. There's, again, a whole section on enhanced mapping and capabilities here, and really what this is, I would call it an overly simplistic example, but certainly the idea of how you're marrying two different databases and displaying that information through a single interface. So what's happening here and behind the scenes would be querying the ARCHIBUS database, but also querying, in this case, the Esri database. So what we're able to do is tie in data that's related to my maps, data that's related to my ARCHIBUS database, and also tie in floor plans or Revit models to make what would traditionally be, if you look at the building here on the left, a fairly non-detailed image into something very detailed where I can almost, see right into the building and see exactly how my space is laid out and the data associated to that. So this is a really powerful way now of displaying information on our buildings, our campuses, and our overall portfolio by combining these elements. So we wanted to make sure we left some time for some Q&A and respect the fact that we're going to keep this to an hour. So certainly I'm going to see what kind of questions Ayanna might have received from you guys. And as she'd mentioned before, you can type those in and we can start fielding those. We do realize, though, that we've scratched the surface on a whole range of functionality, and we encourage you to give us some feedback on prioritizing the next presentation. If you're looking for something on the enterprise asset management or want to deal more with the portfolio and planning, GIS, any of those elements, let us know, and we'll kind of hurry to get something scheduled that dives into more detail.
Thanks, Wayne. Definitely, we've had a couple of questions come in, and I would like to encourage you to put in some more if you've got anything that either Greg or Wayne can answer right now for you. One of the ones that just came in was about the demo site, Wayne. Rob's asking if we've got a 22.1 demo site available that they can kind of take a look at.
Yeah, we can explore some of that. Some of the challenges with the demo site, if you will, is that it's very actively being used by us, and so the randomness of that, I guess, is that we don't want that to frustrate you, Rob, in terms of taking it offline and being not available when you want. But if we want, we can take that directly up with you and figure out the best way to get you to be able to play around and look at some of the tools and see what's available.
Great. I also had a question for both you and Greg. I would like to know what version you guys started on. What version was ARCHIBUS when you were back with ARCHIBUS, Wayne or Greg? Either one.
Is that where I say I don't recall because I'm too old? I started in 6. I did it in 6.1.
5.0, which is 1991.
There you go. Greg beats me. I started in 6.1, so.
It would be interesting to see how some of the people online would, what version they signed on with. I know a lot of our clients are up to 21.3 and will quite likely be looking at 22.1 since this is obviously a very big, is definitely a big release for ARCHIBUS. Congratulations, Greg. That's it's really impressive to see how every year you guys take feedback and continue to evolve the product. I'm just wondering, okay.
I was going to say, for everybody online, if I'll put out a challenge with, since you challenged me on the version of the product that I started on, is for any of the folks that have been around the bend for a while, what's the building that was demoed back in those versions that Greg and I were talking about? I'll give you a hint. It's a 3-letter Greg, you can't answer this because I know you know it, but if you can think of the building that was being used in the demo, send me an email and we'll figure out a prize if you get it right.
Well, one of the things I was hoping to do,
an email, I'll give you a hint, and then you can send it to Wayne.
Oh, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
And then I'll go ask Greg for a prize.
One of the things I wanted to do after this presentation was to send out a quick survey, just a list of possible topics that have come up from user groups we've been doing and from possible topics, and maybe if people can take a quick look at them, maybe just highlight a couple of interest and then flip it back to me, then that'll help direct some of the other webcasts and webinars that we'll continue to roll out this year. We always, just to let everyone know, we definitely always post the links on our website and videos from previous ones which are still relevant, topics like creating energy savings and enterprise integration, lease management, mobilizing the workforce, and layering maps with Esri and GIS information. So make sure you kind of check those out. I do have another, somebody else has been asked about the Bosmed building. Hold on.
No,
Is it?
That's not the one.
That's not
recent,
the one.
So good try though, but it's like I said. There's 3 letters to it. Is the building anyway?
Okay, so that's
the first
a good
letter,
hint.
Wayne, just to give him a hint.
Oh, come on now. We're giving it a here. All right, it starts with an H.
Now I have Brian's been asking about the drawing interface and HTML5. Maybe you guys.
I'll let Greg pick that one up.
Yeah. Thanks, Wayne. Gotta go. Is it just a generic question, or is there a specific?
I think the context, Greg, I would know from a client perspective. The context is, you know, the transition to HTML5 across the application. I think is, you know, what's the
so that process has already begun. A lot of the new work that we're doing is taking advantage of that HTML5 / SVG scalable vector graphic kind of capability. So we've been using those in a lot of the new stuff we're doing. We still support the Flash capabilities that exist in some of the preliminary views that we release, but a lot of that is in transition as well. So we expect everything to be over to that, and I'll try to get an answer back to Wayne that he can share with that Horizon can share with folks about what the timing of that is.
Great.
Yeah, I think the challenge, Greg, really comes down to the quantity of views and information that this would touch, and that's just the so it's a large task to get everything, all the views and everything converted to HTML5. So that's just going to take time.
And as soon as we do that, a new technology will come out that everybody will want instead of HTML5. Or that Apple won't support. I'm not sure.
That was a good question, though, Brian. Thanks for sharing. If there's anything else, I don't see any other questions coming in right now. I know it's a lot of information to digest, and like Wayne said, we're going to be rolling out some more, you know, a deeper dive. You can always contact us as well, either Frank or Wayne or myself or any of the account managers and the people that you deal with here at Horizon to learn a bit more. We do have training sessions that are coming up that I should probably plug before we get going. We've got the fall and winter fundamental systems admin and advanced programming, as well as probably some of the portfolio and asset management, enterprise asset management stuff that we were showcasing today. And I also wanted to take a minute to just mention a few of the conferences related to ARCHIBUS that are coming up. RPIC, the Real Property Institute of Canada, is a primarily government national workshop on November 17th and 18th here in Ottawa. And also there's, which might be of interest to, I know a number of people on the line right now are from the, you know, with that are in town or within the government that might want to check that out. So there's also a user group on the West Coast that's happening at Simon Fraser U next Wednesday, so next Wednesday morning, and a second Ontario user group is being planned for the City of Hamilton in early November. So, and the most important one, last but not least, is the Nexus. That's the amazing ARCHIBUS International Conference, which is going to be held in San Diego this year. So that's in spring on May 1st to the 4th. So if you can, if you want if you have want details or have questions or registration links, I can send them to you, or you can just Google them and join the event.
The comment on that is, I know that I've chased a few of the people on the line about potentially presenting, so I'd encourage you to think about that and participating at that level, and it's a great way to get some interaction with fellow users from around the world. So we'll chase you
cool
some more
to see
on
the
getting
international.
Yeah.
Definitely cool to see an international stage and in the various, see what people are doing well and how they're using ARCHIBUS. So great. So I guess that's it. Thank you very much, Greg Levras, and thank you, Wayne, for your time, and everyone, thanks for joining, and we'll see you online next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anya, for running this, and good luck, everyone.
A pleasure. Bye, guys.